You're listening to RideAlong, EMT School. I'm Mike.
And I'm Max. We're two students navigating EMT school, bringing you along week by week.
And I'm Jonathan, a paramedic bringing real-world perspective.
Join us as we share the lessons, challenges, and stories from EMT school, and hear insights from those already living the EMS life. Welcome to the RideAlong. Well, hello, everybody.
We're back.
Welcome to the RideAlong EMT School podcast.
If you people even knew a tenth of what we put Mike through behind the scenes just to get this thing up and rolling, you would buy him cases of monsters. And the fact that none of them shown up at his house yet is very, very, very disheartening.
It is true. Nobody has bought us Monster yet. But someday we will. Mm-hmm. Someday there will be Monster Rehab pouring through the ceiling, and the cases of Zin will be stacked high behind, in the RideAlong studio of people that are just like, yes, we must help them with their addictions. Also, we accept cases of Uncrustables. That is also an acceptable.
Strawberry, right?
No.
they have to be strawberry, don't they?
Get that shit out of here. This is a non-strawberry studio. The only acceptable answers are grape, with a close second being honey flavored, and I will the apple cinnamon is also acceptable. However, I had one of those the other day, and the cinnamon in there kind of like makes your throat dry. So I was like, oh my God, I need something to drink because it's just clogging everything up. But yeah, no, we accept all different types of things here at the RideAlong podcast.
We do indeed.
All of the EMS addictions are welcome.
I have a secret that I feel like I need to divulge after this conversation with the Uncrustables.
Oh,
I've never had one.
What?
Nope.
Really?
Not once?
Never had an Uncrustable. Nope.
You've had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right?
Of course.
Okay, good. Because I mean, with you, I can never tell because you're weird, and like you don't eat certain things that everybody else eats.
Sure, I do.
You don't eat chicken.
No one should eat chicken.
But everybody eats chicken. Like nobody
doesn't mean they should.
Nobody goes like, oh my God, you know what I could really go for? A nice juicy chicken. But you know what we all eat because it's the most plentiful protein known to man? Chicken. Like
Chicken.
I thought it was crickets. That was like the most plentiful protein known to man.
No, those I would probably eat one of those though before a strawberry Uncrustable.
Before long, we'll have Soylent Green.
It's made of
It's
people.
about the people. It's about the people.
What was that? There was a Twilight Zone episode, I think, too. It was like To Serve Man. Did you guys ever see that one?
I haven't seen that.
Oh, I'm gonna spoiler alert. It was so there was this like aliens show up. And they're like magnanimous, and they're like helping humanity, and like everyone's falling in love with them or whatever. And then like some guy, and they have this book, right? This book that's like To Serve Man, and it's like, and they look at it and go, "Oh my God, it's a book that's like they're here just to help us. They're so magnanimous and omnipotent." And then like some guy learns their language. And then like the big twist in it is like him realizing like it's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. And that's like a line from the episode. But yeah, so it was like, To Serve Man on a platter. That is Soylent Green. But one of the things we should do is we should welcome everybody to this particular episode.
We should indeed.
Spilling Me Softly. No, that's a terrible name. It shouldn't be Spilling Me Softly. I mean, that's who sang that? Killing
How
Me
do you
Softly.
spill it softly?
Who sang Killing Me Softly? Is that Tony Braxton?
I don't know.
I'm
okay that I don't know.
Some 90s thing. Nah, okay, so Spilling Me Softly, that doesn't work. How about The Spiller?
Ooh.
or Spillers. Like,
not bad.
those like Killers is a pretty okay band.
They are.
How about Spilling in the Name of?
Ba-bum.
That's a good one.
You got to do
I
what
like
they
that
told
one.
you. Got to do what they
You gotta
told
do
you.
what they told you.
Maybe a little James Bond, like License to Spill.
Well, I think some companies think they have one.
Well, probably. Man, I remember in the 90s, there was like all of these like big scandals about companies just like spilling stuff into waterways and like just like trashing the environment. I'm sure that doesn't happen now.
No,
At all, ever.
Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's all stopped.
Do you think they can even drink the water again yet in Flint? Wasn't it like a...
Apparently they can.
Well, they say they can.
Yeah,
They say there was some kind of huge, like multi-billion-dollar venture that was done to try and clean their water, and they said that they succeeded. Now, whether they did or not, who the hell knows?
Uh-huh.
No one's talking about it, so they probably tried the water.
Drop us a line.
Yeah. Do you do EMS in Detroit? We'd love to hear about what that's like. I have watched some Detroit YouTube or fire companies on YouTube. Like, apparently they have a lot of fires there, in abandoned
Shocking.
homes and
Shocking.
urban environments. Anyway, I'll get into that in a second. But no, actually, tonight's episode is named after one of our favorite bands, one that we have referenced probably quite often on this episode or on this channel. And you all probably know what it is because you saw the name of the episode when you started it. So I don't even know why we're going through this process of coming up with funny names that it could also be. But welcome to Spill 'Em All. And this week we're talking about HazMat, hazardous materials.
Just stay away, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
All right, episode's done. Just avoid the problem. We could have just avoided this whole podcast by saying just don't be an EMT. And
some caution tape and about 4 or 5 guys and problem solved.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody ever left their house. Oh, actually, I can't even really say that because the most of the calls we go to
happen in people's houses.
are people's houses.
Sometimes we answer calls.
But if you weld their doors shut, then they're no longer a problem for you.
I suppose so.
I'm just saying.
I think it might become a hazmat if
eventually.
hazmat.
Well, what you guys been up to? Have you been out there answering 911 calls, working in your services?
Are you talking to me?
Oh yeah.
Oh, either one of you.
Well, we know Max isn't right now.
Yeah.
No. But my back decided to do back things, so I had to actually cancel my shift that I had signed up for and throw apologies to the lieutenant and such.
Come on, Max. You gotta get with it, brother.
Tell me about it.
Yep. So like, it's like that scene in 40-Year-Old Version. Like, is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
Yes.
It can be true in EMS.
Yeah.
You don't use it, you lose it.
Yes. Yes.
Perishable skills.
Next time I have a shift, it's just going to be like, hey, listen, I just don't remember anything. Just treat me like a moron and go.
Well, I'm I feel that way all the time. And I've been like, there's some things that thankfully just kind of bubble to the surface now. And I do surprise myself like, oh, wow, thank God I remembered to do that. But I had my first like provider, like what is it? Cleared provider, like service, like, or field cleared. Like I'm like I can run on an ambulance as a full EMT, right?
The training wheels are off.
And
you're the ASE.
Yeah, I can be the AIC, the attendant in charge, and be in the back of an ambulance with a patient on my own. And so I've had one of those, even though I got hired like I had to go through field like clearance, right? And then I think I was cleared like almost a month ago. And I just had a series of days of shifts where it was like, there was like a gap and I couldn't find a spot on the schedule because now I actually have to find spots on the schedule where there's no one else working. So I can be, an asset to the team. And I just had like 30 hours of like being the white cloud again. So I was like, oh man, I hope I don't forget how to do all this stuff. So I had my first call where I was the attendant in charge. I was like, oh my God, this is like so much stuff I have to remember. And I still got through it and went, man, there are so many things I want to do better than that. Like I just totally, like we got on scene and I was like, so focused on talking to the patient, which is good. But like, I couldn't tell you what the vitals were. I knew he was fine. Like I could tell he wasn't sick, but like by the time we were packaging him up and moving him, I'm like, oh, I probably should have at least looked at the vitals and asked my partner who took the vitals, who was basically giving me the nod, being like, he's fine. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a little bit too passive for me. I want to make sure that I can mentally check those boxes off and I'm not like phoning some things in. And that was a bit of I was nervous and saturated, task saturated. And I was like, okay, next time I got to make sure I'm checking that box, like, so even now after doing this, however many months, I'm still looking at it and going, okay, I need to improve here. I need to improve. Like I need to make sure that I'm cognizant and thinking through the whole thing and not just kind of going with the flow sometimes. But yeah, that was fun. Did my first, no training wheels, hospital notification on the phone on the way in, nailed it. And like, they were like, yeah, if we don't need any other information. I was like, yes, I finally, because it was a fall victim who hit his head on the way down. And I finally remembered to tell them without them asking me whether or not he had loss of consciousness. So I was like, yes, finally. I didn't forget to tell them that one key important piece of information with a fall victim. But
it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, it's I could look back now and go, man, I know a bunch more than I used to.
That's the point.
Yeah. Now we just need to get Max up to speed.
Yes, I just have to get repetitions in, and my body has been rather annoying about things.
Yeah, and stop doing overnight shifts. There's no calls overnight.
Well, the overnight is an opportunity also to get time with a medic that I know who can go through things with me and kind of test prep me and things like that, which is good. But again, the new job, it makes it much, much simpler. If my body would just stop being a nuisance, I'd be all set. So
stop being old.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
How about you, Jonathan? Have you been doing some 911 work at now that you're back home?
Yeah, I've basically kept more than full-time hours. I'm picking up between 36 and 60 hours a week at this point, between an ambulance and a response vehicle, and cracking drug boxes. And something I got trained on the last week and got to deploy in the field is point of care ultrasound.
Oh yeah, that's super interesting.
So I basically got trained on it, and then had the opportunity in that same shift to go out in the field and utilize it, and kind of, I'm still learning how to use it appropriately and interpret what I'm seeing on the screen. But having the cool thing about it is like we can record what is on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody else, like a physician or like my supervisor, they were looking at it and they're like, yeah, I was like, I think this is what this is. And they're like, yeah, that's what it is. Look right here. And, confirmed what my suspicions were, that this person had fluid on their lungs.
Nice. That's cool.
So, yeah. That's one of the cool things we're doing.
I think point of care ultrasound and, well, obviously blood products being more prevalent, I think those are going to be two huge things in EMS in the near future. As a matter of fact, I saw a course. So, by the way, if anybody is interested and you're going down to Orlando for EMS World Expo in September. I will be there. I will be down there for the 2 pre-conference days and the 3 days of the expo, going around, learning stuff, going to check out different seminars or whatever the class is, and hitting all the booths and meeting as many cool people in EMS as possible. So definitely, if you're going to be down there, let us know. Like, shoot us a message at ridealongpodcasting@gmail.com or reach out to me directly through the social medias and stuff. Would love to meet everybody down there and say hi. And you know, if there's any listeners that are going to be down there, that'd be awesome. But one of the classes I saw on the list, which I am not taking, was the point of care ultrasound, because it was only like a half-day pre-conference class. And instead, I chose to go with TECC because I don't have it yet.
Good choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's tactical emergency casualty care. That's the class offered through, I believe it's NAEMT, right?
Yep, National Association EMTs. Yep.
And I was supposed to take it this past month up here in New Jersey, but the class got canceled, unfortunately. So I was hoping to get that done here, and then I'd be able to take some different classes down there. But I'm prioritizing that because I want to get that class under my belt. So I'm taking that as the pre-conference class down in Orlando, and it's actually a very reasonable cost. So I was like, all right, that makes sense. It's like $230 or something like that for 2 days worth of classes, where some of the other classes are like $200 just for like a 1 day thing. So I'll be taking that, and yeah, just lining up things for Orlando, and that'll be a lot of fun. I had a great time last year, and make sure you send us messages and shame these other 2 guys because they haven't committed to going down to Orlando yet with me.
When is this again?
Hey man, critical care class is starting.
Yeah, it's the end of September. Yeah. So it's a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to see a friend of the show, Steve Norman, a paramedic from Indianapolis. He's going to be there doing a talk. I'm definitely going to his seminar, and I'm working out something with Indianapolis right now. I might be going out to Indianapolis to do a ride along, and something that you all might be able to listen to too. So we've got cool things coming all over the summer for ride along. But yeah, so lots going on. But why don't we, first off, actually, before we get any further, we should mention our sponsor.
We definitely should.
Yeah, we're already far too into this to we would be remiss to not mention Cambridge Sensors, who is our sponsor for tonight's episode. When every second matters, confidence starts with the right tools. The MicroDot glucose monitor kit from Cambridge Sensors gives EMT students and providers a simple, compact way to check blood glucose during patient assessment. Whether you're training in class, building your jump bag, or preparing for real-world calls, MicroDot helps keep diabetic emergencies top of mind. Small kit, big information, better decisions. Learn more about the MicroDot glucose monitor kit at microdotcs.com. or ask your service why you're not using the best dang glucose kit out there, because it comes.
The important part is they realize that orange is better,
and it's the most beautiful thing because it's orange. I don't know why I'm so drawn to the orange, but I really am.
Right there with you. Yeah,
but yeah, MicroDot was super awesome, and the guys at Cambridge Sensors, we love dealing with them, and I'm sure I will be seeing them at EMS World Expo. As a matter of fact, I promised I would bring them some coffee, because they were kind enough to help us out with some kit stuff that we're building into our first in bag and all these other things that we're going to be talking about soon. But without further ado, why don't we get into hazmat and hazmat operations and all the things regarding hazardous materials for tonight's episode.
Yes.
And we'll start with the medical term of the week, which is what we always start.
Usually where we start.
It's usually where we start.
After the banter.
Yeah. So this week, the medical term of the week is a a general concept that we should be aware of as EMTs, because we will be using this kind of system in any hazmat operation. As soon as a hazmat team gets involved, or anytime that we're suspecting hazmat to be involved in something, all of a sudden we're going to start referring to areas by the terminology of 3 different zones. So zones are the medical term of the week. In a hazardous materials incident, the scene is divided into operational zones to control access, protect responders, and prevent contamination from spreading. So when we're like, if we roll up to something, if we suspect that there's like a hazmat spill of some sort, as soon as we kind of activate that system, we call for it. We'll talk about identifying and all this stuff as we go through things, but we're all of a sudden going to set that situation or set that scene up into 3 different zones. The first one is the hot zone, which I guess could technically actually be hot, but
it could be.
It could, but it's not.
There are materials that are flammable.
In this particular instance, we're not talking about the temperature. We're talking about kind of the riskiest section, the hot zone. This is the area where the danger or contamination is in there, right? Whatever that hazardous material is, it's basically on top of that hazardous material, the area directly affected with it. And that could be anything from a room to a building. And depending on the size of it, it could be a whole block, right? Like it's like the hot zone is the area that's directly affected by the spill or the contaminant itself. And this is where we think that hazardous material is present or suspected of being present. We don't have to confirm that it's there, but like if it's the area where we think it is, that could also be the hot zone. Now, what are we doing with the hot zone? We are like, as EMTs, we'll talk about this more. We're not usually going in the hot zone. That's the danger area. And obviously we've been ingrained with the idea that, hey, who's the most important person on the scene?
Me.
I am.
Right. So we're not putting ourselves into a almost certain death situation or certain injury situation, because that would just make the situation worse, especially when it comes to hazmat, because there is such a chance of us thinking like, oh, I maybe I won't be affected. No, when we start dealing with hazardous material stuff, and we'll learn about this tonight, like that can go south so quickly in such a large area. Like that is where we need to kind of take that white knight syndrome and completely remove it and go, hey, I need to stay out of this, because A, I'm going to make myself put myself in danger, but also other people in danger too, because then they're going to be tempted to come and get me. Right. So we're just going to make it worse and worse. We have to stay out of the hot zone, that area where the contaminant is. So we limit entry into the hot zone. That only the qualified personnel that are, trained to go into hot zones, And we as EMTs are usually, and it's not always, but usually not the person that is, we may be trained to do it. Like people get all sorts of training, but our particular role, if we're working as an EMT, likely our role does not require us to go into the hot zone. Our role in this whole process is going to be treating and transporting patients, right? So that all happens by plan outside of the hot zone.
Right.
Okay, so we know what the hot zone is. Next outside of that is, can you guess what the name is?
Maybe it's the not so hot zone.
It's the tepid zone, obviously. No, it's the warm zone, the warming tray. It's like that burner on the oven that nobody uses.
Yeah.
The warming zone. So this is the transition. It is that kind of space between danger and not danger. So anywhere in there where you think that could be something where that contaminant could spill out to, especially as people are entering and exiting, that is where the warm zone is. This zone is very important when it comes to decontamination. We'll talk about decontamination tonight, but decontamination happens in the warm zone. It's kind of the definition of it, because if people are coming out with possible contaminant on them, we need them to be in an area where there is now a delineation between where there could be contaminant because it's on them and where there is not contaminant,
Right.
which is outside of it. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. So patients and responders move from the contaminated to cleaner areas, right? As they kind of come out from the hot zone. So in the warm zone, the PPE, the personal protective equipment, is still required because contamination may be present. Like we're unsure. Right. That is the decontamination area. So we're going from hot to warm. And then, of course, what's the last zone going to be called?
The cooler.
Zakula. It's the blue zone, obviously. No, it's the cold zone. So hot, warm, cold. In the cold zone, this is where we are confident that there is no contamination hazard, right? Mm-hmm. Like it is the safe zone. It is the area where we, as the EMS team, is usually staging because that's the area where it is safe for us to be. It's usually where the command is, right. Whoever is commanding this incident. And we're going to talk about that next week because we're going to be talking about ICS, the Incident Command System, and MCI, multiple casualty incidences, which are often very linked together. All part of that system is going to be this process where there's like a command and people who are in charge and well-trained and kind of telling everybody else what to do. That is going to be in the safe zone because there's no point in putting that in danger.
It'd be fun, more entertaining though.
Yeah, I guess, like it'd be really hard to hear them like, okay, so we're going to really just, I need everybody. Actually, it's what everyone kind of sounds like on the radio, but yes. But yeah, so that's the outer ring of that's going to be the cold zone. That's the safe area. No contaminants are likely to be found in that area. And if it does become contaminated, then all of a sudden it becomes the hot or the warm zone, right? Like if there's a doubt about it, then it's not the cold zone. So this is where command, staging, treatment, transport operations are usually located. And, any EMS treatment should really happen here because these patients have already been decontaminated on the way out of the hot zone. So as they get out, they should be clean and not bringing that hazardous material out with them. And this remains, I don't think we really need to say this, but obviously if we're in the cold zone, that's where our ambulances should be as well. So we need to make sure all of the apparatus and the vehicles and the equipment, everything that we could be using, all of that needs to be assuredly outside of the possible contamination areas as well. Right. Yeah. So if we're outside being safe, we should make sure all the stuff is outside with us. So that's safe when we need it. So why does this all matter? Well, the zone system helps us stay organized. It helps us define areas where people should be in. It helps us understand that there is a process from going from a contaminated area to the safe area. That's like the whole warm zone existing. While it can be fluid where that physical line is, the action of decontamination somebody and then getting out to safety. When you're in the safe area, you're in the cold zone. Anywhere in between, you're in the warm zone. It's important for us to know those things because. Yeah. And when we're supporting a scene, it's important for us to make sure that the command has told us where those areas are and that they've set us up in an area where it's like, okay, this is the cold zone. Where is the warm zone? So we don't go into it, right? Like we're avoiding that. And especially we need to know where the hot zone is because we definitely don't want to go there.
I mean, any of these incidents are going to be chaos. So any simple structure you can give it that allows the people that are operating in it to have a better grasp of what's going on is going to be beneficial to the mission. Yeah.
So the last thing just to mention about this, kind of the key thing to remember as an EMT, do not enter hot zones. If you suspect that an area is a hot zone, do not go into it. The only people that should be going into those are the ones that are properly trained and equipped to do that. And directed to do that by whoever's in command of the situation, right? We don't need people going rogue. We don't need people just kind of wandering in. You may have the training. Awesome. Tell the person who's in command and they may be able to put you to use. But the idea is we do not go into the areas where we are not qualified or directed to go into. So,
Yep.
zones.
Zone. They're tremendous.
Tremendous. The bigly zones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's kind of to set us up in hazmat, because we're talking about several things. We're talking about contaminants. We're talking about safe areas. We're talking about, roles of people doing things, decontamination. All of that kind of gets pulled into the idea of how that scene gets organized and where the contaminants are.
Right.
But there's an important question that I think we need to get into now that we're in the kind of main section of tonight's podcast episode. And that is, what is a hazmat? Like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about like kitty litter? Are we talking, what'd you say?
Isn't it like a Russian dude? Hazmat? Sounds like a Russian name.
I mean, it's the coolest sounding name ever. I'm hazmat.
Yeah.
Hazmat.
I could see some firefighter naming his kid Hazmat. Completely. 100%.
Yeah, or I could see I would totally name my kid Halligan. That's a pretty cool sounding name.
With middle name Bar.
Hooligan.
Hooligan. But I think the person who's probably the most experienced in this topic should probably be the one to lead us off into what the hell is hazmat, Jonathan?
Yes, Jonathan. Tell us.
Tell us.
So I'm gonna start from the top, and as with so many things in public safety and fire and EMS, the U.S. Department of Transportation comes into play.
Ooh,
Of course.
So the U.S. DOT. So they have some definitions related to what hazmat or hazardous materials incident might be. So a hazardous material is any substance or material that possesses an unreasonable risk to health, safety, or property, and I would include the environment as part of that property, when transported in commerce. So, and this includes all sorts of ways I'm gonna talk about. So, like on our highways, that every single day, tons of hazardous materials being transported on the highways, through our railroad system, any industrial facility that produces something. They're going to have hazardous materials. Warehouses, right? So you got to store some of this stuff, right? So it's going to be stored in warehouses. Agricultural sites, hospitals, even your own home can have hazardous materials in it. So after I read all that off, basically everywhere.
Yeah,
it's all around you at all times.
Can have hazardous materials in it.
Did you guys do you remember, was it a year or two ago? Maybe it was longer, because time flies now that we're old. But was it Ohio? There was that big train derailment where like the whole town got evacuated. I forget exactly what the hazmat was, but that was like the most recent like story, because the train cars derailed.
Kind of vinyl chloride, or
one of the things we'll be talking about tonight in terms of the types of chemicals and types of classifications of hazmat. But it was like one of those things, like, and it was like something that would leach into the groundwater. Well, and
they decided to set it on fire. Because it was leak. Yeah, yes. The fire apparently was intentional, because they thought that would stop the leakage.
Well, I guess that's one way to get rid of a hazardous material until you turn it into a gaseous form.
Cloud that just, that whole town is just, and the ones around are
but like from a hazmat perspective, like we can look at like a few different things throughout history. I mean, like look at, I think probably one of the most famous things in recent memory is like the oil spill in the Gulf. What was it? The Deepwater Horizon. That's like an ecological disaster level. Yeah. Here in Pennsylvania, we had 3 Mile Island.
Yep.
Right. That was a huge deal back in the 80s. Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Fukushima Like these are all like those are nuclear, but like it's all this, like it's all kind of falls into this kind of hazmat thing. And then on a smaller scale, like
100%.
hazmat stuff happens all the time, all the time.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like any call that you go on could become a hazard materials call. You know, according to the Department of Transportation, there's more than 800,000 hazardous material shipments that occur every day in the United States.
That's not very
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, and that's just the shipments of the materials, right? That's not talking about, you know, industrial accidents or anything else. That's just the movement of the materials across the country. So, some important things to consider is most of these calls, unless there's something very obvious about it, you may not have the full picture as you're responding. It may be a routine EMS call, and I say routine loosely, but
is there really a routine
you,
EMS call?
Well, I'm of the belief that there is not, but
fall victim.
But,
that's a routine.
Here's some things to be on the lookout if you're getting your dispatch information and you're responding. So anytime you're going to somewhere that is a place of business or even place of recreation, and you get multiple people that are falling ill with the same thing, same sorts of symptoms, you should be thinking potentially hazmat. You know, something as simple as a family all getting the same sort of symptoms, right? A carbon monoxide poisoning in a structure, that's a hazardous materials call, right?
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, that's a very simple thing to deal with, but that's a hazardous materials call. Chlorine exposure at the pool, and that could, you know, generally that's going to be in the form of, you know, liquid chlorine, liquid bleach, that sort of thing. But maybe even in industrial plants, right? You have gaseous chlorine, and that's a whole other thing to deal with. At any rate, you have all these different environments that you're responding into, and any one of them could become or is a hazardous materials call. So the big thing for us as EMTs and EMT students is to be able to recognize the subtle signs that this may be a hazardous materials call and not endanger ourselves as we respond, and to alert the proper channels to get the appropriate resources to us. So the goal is to not become a victim of that hazardous material incident.
All right. So we have a sense of what it is. I think we'll talk tonight about just how many different things fall into the hazardous materials category, obviously. But one of the things that we kind of already introduced the concept of before, okay, we have a hazmat, and we're going to talk about what we do as EMTs if we need to identify it. But if we're responding to a hazmat incident, we have those zones set up that we talked about. Now, we had chatted, or, you know, one of the ideas in there is like, who's well trained to go deal with hazmat incidences? Jonathan, are you do you have awareness? Like, are you at the awareness level, or are you
no,
do you have higher?
I have hazmat operations.
Okay.
So that more, and we'll get into this, but like that more defensive kind of operations towards a hazardous materials incident. But that was through the fire department. Most EMS folks, unless they go seek it out, and that's kind of a specialty that they, you know, go towards, most EMS folks have a base level of awareness.
Right.
In Virginia, in the fire department, the base level of training is hazardous materials operations level.
Yeah.
So you're able to deal with those spills potentially defensively as they happen, or there's incidents as they happen.
So there's different levels. Max, do you want to bring us through? Because I think
Sure.
you kind of dug into this, right? Like the different levels of training that we could get within hazmat.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of them. So OSHA regulates it. And OSHA has this thing called the HazWOPER, which when I saw it written out, I was like, this can't be a real thing. But acronyms: hazardous waste operations and emergency response.
Yeah, it's not like the most badass
No, not at
hamburger
all.
that you can imagine. It's
But it's like, okay, like, I thought it was fake. It's not fake. And it establishes 5 different levels of training. The first thing we talked about just a moment ago is first responder awareness. And that's the ability to kind of recognize the hazardous material incident, knowing that something's going on, being able to use your eyes, maybe use a pair of binoculars to figure out what's going on, knowing that you need to protect yourself. The most important person on scene is you. After you, it's your partner. And then more importantly, I think, is notifying the appropriate agencies that what's going on. Especially if you're the first person on scene, being able to get the resources on hand to be able to deal with what's going on. And this is kind of the minimum expected level for most EMTs.
We had to get it just to go into school. Like we had to get it as part of our EMT class.
Yeah. And then you have first responder operations, which is what Jonathan was just talking about. And this is more defensive actions, making sure that the scene is safe, making sure people aren't going into the hot zone, protecting people and property, and preventing incident spread.
Now I have a question, and sorry to interrupt, because like there's something in here that I read. Like, Jonathan, can you define the difference between offensive versus defensive? Because like if operations does defensive stuff, I assume this is kind of in the same sense that like there's offensive and defensive operations in fire. Is that right?
Sure. And so the biggest thing that separates those two is in the defensive operations, we're going to stay mostly in that warm zone, but we're going to protect life and property through either getting people out of that warm zone. Or we're going to go ahead and like try and protect waterways and drainage systems, and by building dams and levees and dikes and things like that, and just trying to contain the active incident if we're able to, depending on whatever the material that's spilled or that isn't contained is. Now, when you get to the technician level and you start into the operations side of the house, or excuse me, the offensive operations side of the house, what you're going to do is actually go down and handle the material directly, however it's appropriate to do so with the material in question.
Well, obviously with your bare hands, I would assume, right?
Right. No, you're gonna be suited up like a spaceman, right? If everybody's seen ET, and the suits that the scientists wore trying to capture Elliot and ET, a lot of the suits look very similar to that.
A movie featuring Reese's Pieces, by the way. Like, yes. Not M&M's.
Yes.
Reese's Pieces, you mean.
That's a throwback reference.
A couple episodes ago, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so the big difference is, protecting life and property and the environment with those defensive actions, and then actually going down to do the actual containment directly with the material, depending on what it is in those offensive operations or those offensive actions.
Okay, so operations is defensive, and then Max,
and then the offensive we hazardous materials technician.
Okay, so technician is the level above that, where it's like now we're going into the thing and we're like plugging leaks or like addressing the I guess spill directly, not just keeping it from getting bigger.
Yeah, and one of the things they mentioned in class in the chapter was the idea of sewers brings up a huge problem for any kind of a spill, because you could instantly have a scene that is now massive, especially if there's any kind of major water flow going through those sewers.
Yeah.
And then hazardous material specialist, they actually know what the substances are. They know how to best either defeat them or the issues that can occur. So they're able to, go about making sure that specific material is taken care of in such a way that's not making things worse.
Right. So from my understanding, this is more about like when you're a hazardous materials specialist, you're not a specialist in everything. You're a specialist in
a thing,
in like,
or a type
you know,
of thing.
pesticides, or like,
Right.
or a specialist in specifically chlorine gas or
Right.
something along those lines, where it's like you are the person that they call for an area when there's a leak
Yep.
of this type, right?
And also, you're also the liaison between different government agencies that would be involved, whether it's the EPA. You know, so that's your role in that. And then you have the on-scene incident commander. That's the guy that's in charge of things. He's the one that's organizing the entire orchestra. He's implementing ICS and managing the entire incident.
Right.
He's
So
the one that's my guess is he's the one that's designating the hot, cold, warm zones and making sure everything's operating the way it's supposed to.
Right. But I think, and from what I remember in class when we were talking about this stuff, that on-scene incident commander isn't necessarily just a level within the IC or within the hazmat kind of tree.
No,
like he may
he's
have
a
those.
different- yeah.
But he is the one that is in charge of all these people to making sure
Yes.
that like everything is going towards like that plan of the ICS, right?
Yeah, when the instructor was talking about it, I was actually kind of surprised because he was saying that in the instance that he had been a part of, a few of the bigger ones, like that person was there within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So that ability, I mean, if you're the first person on the scene, you're setting up command and control from where you're at right there at the ambulance. But the idea that you're able to get someone on scene so fast, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we know the different levels that we could train to. We as EMTs are at that awareness. Like I know we are at the awareness level. It doesn't mean that all EMTs are at it. I'm sure there are some out there that are cross-trained in fire. Fire seems to usually have a bit higher.
There was 3 or 4 in our class that had already been through, and one of them was
yeah.
a technician. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So there's going to be different levels available.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as what we do on the EMS side,
we save the world.
Well,
we're the heroes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We have a kind of designated role in like this is what we learned in the awareness operations, right? So first up, I think the and we'll talk about how we identify these things, but is to recognize the incident. Like I think first and foremost, if we're not the easiest way to recognize an incident is when somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I need you to respond to a hazmat incident." In which case we're like, "Great, all the hard part is done. They told us the answer."
That's when you roll up, you get out of the I think this is a hazmat system.
Yeah, you just take a sniff into the air.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing that we need to do if we aren't like responding to something already defined is identifying or recognizing that it is a hazmat incident. And there'll be clues to that. One of which Jonathan mentioned before is like, hey, if a bunch of people are getting sick in a particular area, that could be a big sign, right?
100%.
So that's number one. Second thing we need to do is once we recognize that there is a hazmat incident going on, then we need to kind of call in the cavalry, right? We need to let the right people know that there is a hazmat incident so that they can get those people in there that are the technician, the operations, and the specialist level, whatever those other levels are, so that we can get those people ready and going. To get in there, setting up all the zones and doing all the things to help organize the area. And then once that we call for those resources, if we're identifying it, we may become the on-scene commander at that point, at least until the point somebody comes along and relieves us, which I would imagine is the greatest feeling in the world, where all of a sudden, oh great,
thank God
I'm a first-year EMT and the incident commander of a large hazmat spill, hopefully only for the next 6 minutes until the fire team gets here, and then all of a sudden somebody who is way more experienced at this can take over.
Passing command along.
Yeah, which is okay. You got it, boss. You take it. You let me know what you need from me.
Tell me where you want the stretcher.
Yeah. So until then, we may need to control the scene. We may need to be the ones dictating what's going on. We may have to define what we best find to be the hot zone, right? Like, hey, don't anybody go in here, and then give it a well-spaced buffer, and then we're all going to stage out here so that nobody's like bringing contaminations across and getting anybody else sick.
Right.
So we got to control this, and we need to keep the public out of it. That's a huge part of this too. Is like, we know what we're doing on the EM, like the public services side or the emergency services, but then people are stupid. They're just going to drive.
Yes.
They're going to drive past the cones. They're going to like, you're going to put the big hands out and be like, no, give them the knife hand to go in that direction. And they're not going to listen. And they're going to start driving in towards.
Well, that's because they're doing this.
Right. They're looking at their phones.
Right.
But that's part of our job, is to make sure that we're setting up that perimeter to like make sure nobody else is getting hurt,
right?
Because that just makes more work for us in the long run, right? Yeah. Like we want to make less hurt people. And then the last part of that kind of step process is once if we're controlling the scene, if we can, and I would say this is probably the hardest part of it, is identifying the substance. I think it's easy for us to identify that is dangerous and that is causing people to get sick. It's a lot harder to be like, that's a organophosphate, or that is a benzodiazepine. I don't know, like some other chemical that, like, knowing what it is might help people treat better for it. But we need to know how to look for those. And if we can, and we need to do it from a location that is safe. Like, we can't just walk up to the truck that is spilled and look at the placard on the side, like, that's hidden behind stuff, because going that close to it means that we're putting ourselves in the hot zone. Right. So we need to make sure that, like, okay, we're trying to identify as much as we can. We're asking questions. We're seeing if anybody knows what was on the truck. Like, oh yeah, we were carrying a big shipment of chlorine for pools. Okay, cool. Well, that's something, or hydrochloric acid. All right. Well, we're definitely not going near that hydrochloric acid, right? So yeah, we're trying to do all these things, and we're, which is logical and it makes sense, but we're just helping control the scene, and then, working with whoever's in charge when they get there. So, we talked about locations that these can happen. Like, Jonathan brought us through different locations, the truck spills on a highway, industrial plants, all these types of things where locations can happen, or hazmat incidents can happen. But what are the warning signs, right? Those are the things that we're looking for. So multiple patients with similar symptoms, that is something we're definitely looking for. Like, if we're in a warehouse and all of a sudden, like, 12 warehouse workers are all, like, complaining of dizziness and sweating, and, like, they're all getting ill at the same time, well, that's a clue. So we're going to make sure that, like, we're assuming that it is a hazmat situation until proven otherwise.
100%.
Strange odors. Like, a lot of chemicals and things and hazardous materials have specific, kind of human indicators. Like, there's a reason why we have hackles that go up when we smell certain things. And that's usually because that's a bad thing, right?
It may be too close if you smell it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. In other words, get away.
Reverse.
Visible vapor clouds. I think that was one of the things at that incident out in Ohio. That was like a big, like, they saw these big clouds of chemicals coming out of the rail cars and stuff. Leaking containers, stuff spilling out, pooling on the ground. Like, those are, well, first off, we can see.
But that might get you a nice 3-eyed fish.
Or it could give you superpowers. One of the two. I mean,
yes.
I mean,
I'm just saying,
is it
every science fiction that I've watched as a kid said you should walk directly into a hazmat situation and breathe deeply.
It's exactly what the Toxic Avenger told us in
or
Daredevil,
exactly,
if I remember correctly.
So,
but yes, like, if we can see these things, sometimes we're too close, right? So some other signs too, like, actually a really good analogy. So, do you ever see old coal mine footage, or, like, cartoons of coal mines where, like, they brought a canary down into the coal mine with them? So a canary in a coal mine it was a hazmat detector.
It was indeed.
right? So like, I think it was sulfur gas or whatever usually happens within a coal mine. They would have those canaries with them because that it would be an early warning sign for whether or not gases were building up and able to kill them. So smaller animals usually are affected more quickly than we are. And you may see dead animals. That's one of those big signs as well. Even dead vegetation, like if something's spilling out and killing all the vegetation and it's, turning it brown instantly, that's probably not a good sign. It means it's, maybe some caustic or some bad stuff. But yeah, so the big one, not to hit on it too much, but the unexplained illnesses from multiple people, that's probably the one where we should really be focusing and thinking like this could be a hazmat situation.
Yeah, I don't think you can say it enough because that's one of those key factors that should immediately get your attention.
Yeah. Okay, so we know what we're supposed to do, but from an overall standpoint, are there some tactics or some strategies, Jonathan, maybe that you've seen where like we should probably be doing when we're doing hazmat stuff?
Sure. So there's some pretty common practices, and this is going to be standard across the board as far as curriculums and training are concerned, but we want to be uphill, right? So if there is a liquid or even a gas, like, right, so it's gonna all that's gonna settle, right? Gravity is gonna be playing against it, so we want to be above it, and then we also want to be upwind of it, right? So we don't want the wind blowing towards us. And then we also want to stay away from any sort of topography that is in a low area where some sort of hazardous material could collect. So we want to stay away from those areas. And so the inverse of that is we don't want to be downwind. We don't want to be in an area where, any sort of liquid's going to drain into the area. And then we don't want to be in those low areas where a vapor could accumulate. Those are all places that we want to avoid. So uphill, upwind, and not in a low lying area where we may have vapors that could
because I would imagine
accumulate.
The vapor stuff. It doesn't even like it's not just liquid that can settle in like in a bowl, right? Like it's like if you're in a basement and it fills with gases and it's heavier than air, it's going to displace all the air in that area.
Yeah. And that's the big thing about being in those low areas. You may be fine, 4 feet above it, but then you get down into it. It's one of the reasons that when we talk about responding into like industrial areas, we don't go down into holes unless we're examining those holes with a gas meter to make sure that the air is breathable down there.
Yeah, I ain't going down in any holes.
Yeah, I mean, really you shouldn't unless you have the proper training to. But in general, like if you were to like get called for a rescue somewhere and there's a hole, make sure somebody gets called to bring a gas meter out to check and make sure the air is not toxic to be breathing. And so we're talking about some strategies to kind of control a scene and kind of control our response into it. One of the big things is, and just like with any EMS call that we go on, we don't want to rush into a scene, right? We've got to keep our safety as the top priority. And at the awareness level, we have the ability to look through our resources and figure things out, but we've still got to make sure we don't just rush right into a hazardous materials incident. We all want to help, but like you said earlier, Mike, this is the time to dispense with the white knight syndrome.
Yeah. Okay.
Max?
So we have a sense of what we do and how to organize stuff and where we should put ourselves. But when we're there, I think we talked about before, like the idea of what we're looking for, how to identify stuff. Max, did you go into like take a dive into like how we find out what we're looking for?
Yeah, so there's some simple things that they put on, especially on the highways, on vehicles that are traveling with stuff in them.
You mean there's a reason for those cool, like,
There is a
placards
reason.
and signage on all the trucks and stuff?
You see that one where there's a hand and half the hand's gone. Like, there's a reason for that.
Oh, I thought that
Skull
was just like
crossbones.
the dog bite.
The skull and crossbones
like
is
the
the best
shark.
one when you're driving down.
I always thought it, like, with the missing hand, that's like where they keep sharks in that container.
It could be acidic sharks. It's always a possibility. But we keep saying the same thing on repeat. There's a reason why we keep saying it. An EMT should never approach a scene to simply identify a chemical. Like walking up and flipping the placard down and saying, "Okay, what's this?" or looking for the shipping label to see what is the product that's being shipped is a good way to wind up dead.
But should they go up to it and like lick it? Like in the movies, like if they don't know what the substance is,
Yeah,
they dip.
but you got to use your pinky.
Right, the pinky means that you
Right.
don't take enough of any substance to actually
and put a
taste
glove
it.
on first. That way, you're not affected by what you're about to lick off your finger. But the
It's
idea,
like the guy in Caddyshack.
Yeah,
Cleaning the pool.
exactly.
It's just a baby Ruth.
But the idea of being able to look at it from a distance, there is a simple tool, which is a pair of binoculars, which may or may not be in your ambulance. I don't know if there's a pair in the service I use or not. I'm going to find out next time on service because it would be good to know these things.
I don't think that they're in the Pennsylvania minimum equipment list from the last time I checked, but I could be wrong, but I've not seen them in my hometown service either.
I'm certainly going to find out because there's a few rail lines that run right through that area.
True.
That we cross multiple times a day. So, but binoculars is a way for you to observe the placards or the labels without actually getting into those dangerous areas. Generally, you're going to see these placards placed on tankers, rail cars, storage containers, and vehicles. You see them a lot on the 18-wheelers. There'll actually be a spot. Sometimes it's blank because there's nothing in them at the time. But I think some states for DOT, they have to have those on there in case they do transport any of these materials. And sometimes you're going to see these containers that look terrifying because it looks like a little tank, like a 1,000-gallon canister that's got an exoskeleton around it, which is terrifying. Because why do they need an exoskeleton around that?
Yeah, the skull and crossbones one is always a fun one to see.
Oh yeah, it's like so. Okay, so I'm gonna get off the highway now and go to Wawa.
Yeah,
and get something to drink, and then I'll get back on later. And so the placard is called the NFPA 704 Diamond, and it uses a 4-color system. Blue would mean health hazard, so this is something that could potentially harm you, not necessarily kill you. Red is a fire hazard, so if it's flammable, or I have heard inflammable, apparently those two things mean the same thing.
They sure do.
They mean similar things. Makes no sense to me.
Words.
It shouldn't go that way if you look at normal, just structure of words. Yellow is reactivity. No, I'm good. But that's going to be is it reactive to either air or other products? Maybe it's reactive to water. And then white is special hazards. So those are the special ones, the ones like I would assume you might see that on I don't know, a thing that has radioactive material in it.
Maybe.
So they're all bad in one way or another. But the numbers range from 0 to 4 with higher numbers indicating a greater danger as well as the color code that's with them. And again, sometimes you're going to actually see a symbol where it shows you different things on there, whether it's corrosive or not. And there's some additional sources of information about this stuff. All these vehicles are supposed to have shipping papers, and they are going to identify the exact substance, the quantity, the origin, and destination.
Hopefully.
Now, with my experience with trucking companies, relying on them to do anything right, have any of the right material, or even to have the right material in the right truck as it gets shipped out is a hope and a prayer.
Well, that all relies on whoever's driving the truck to also be aware of what's in the truck. And
sometimes the drivers have this much contact and this much. They don't even move the stuff.
You're making a zero sign with your hand, which people cannot hear. So they have no.
Yeah, sorry, I held a bit like big zero.
Yeah.
There are a lot of shipping companies that are dock to dock, so that means that truck is going to drive from one dock and drive to another and never even touch the load that's on the truck.
Right.
So it is definitely one of those things. But either way, he should have some information with him. There's also safety data sheets, and they're going to talk about the physical properties of whatever that substance is, specific hazards if it has it. Also, it sometimes is going to have first aid recommendations if there is a spill, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and then specific information for the fire department so they know how to handle it. Because some substances, water doesn't work.
Yeah, and safety data sheets, sometimes called material safety data sheets, right? MSDS is usually the term. If there's a location that has any type of hazmat stuff at it, like even if it's like I used to work at a pool, right? I was a Boy Scout camp, but like, you know, certain areas had to have MSDS sheets available so that like if there was a problem with the chlorine storage area, there was an MSDS sheet for that, and that was the regulation that camp had to follow, and that's usually the case. So if something has like petrochemicals or pesticides, like any type of location that's dealing with any type of hazardous material, not just the trucks or the transport, there will be likely, if they're doing it legitimately and they follow the laws, there's always going to be some station somewhere with like a big old binder hanging on a wall where like you pull that thing out and it's like, okay, flip through the pages and like, okay, we're dealing with X. And if this is spilling, this is the best thing to do. Like wash the eyes and get them to the hospital, you know?
Right. And then the other thing for additional information is witness interviews. If you can, talk to the driver. He may know what he's hauling. He may know what's going on. If you're at a plant, and you're at some kind of a manufacturing plant, ask them, hey, what is that?
Yeah, likely there will be there's going to be some sort of safety officer that is probably the person that's like, oh, I will tell you all of the things that you need to know about this. That's their entire job.
Right. Railroad personnel, same thing. They generally are going to know what they're hauling, and they're going to have all the information as well. And any kind of a supervisor on scene, if it's some kind of, even if it's a school like you were talking about or a camp, they're generally going to be able to point you in a direction of the information that you need.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So there's ways we could tell what we're carrying. Now the next section we're going to talk about real quick, and I really wanted to take this section because we get to talk about like the fun stuff. Like, what is it that we're carrying? Like, what are the actual things? And there's a million different hazmat stuff, and like there's different categories of things, different types of chemicals. Like some chemicals, actually, if you want to look into this and kind of dig deeper into how these different chemicals can affect the body, look up toxidromes, and I think that's a concept that we may have gotten into in our poisoning episode. I think it was we definitely familiar taste of poison. So different types of chemicals will have different toxidromes. So those toxidromes will have different effects, like common effects that you will see in people. So some things are like sympathomimetics, and some things are may have like if it's an opioid toxidrome, it's like, oh, all opioids are going to create dilated pupils and unconsciousness. Constricted pupils, not dilated. Thank you. But like they'll have similar effects as other opioids, right? So toxidromes are something that you should be aware of in here in terms of like different types of chemicals that you can come across. However, the Department of Transportation takes that into a class system. So there's different classes of, because like hazardous materials aren't just things that affect the body, like in terms of if we get ill from being around it. It also takes into account things that are damaging to the body if they go wrong. So, for instance, there's I think there's 9 classes. The first class is explosives. Now the body doesn't react poorly to explosives unless the explosive explodes, right? Like that's kind of the idea of the explosives. But think about the types of things that we could see in that explosives category, because you immediately think like, oh, they don't transport explosives. They do. They absolutely do. Like mining operations require dynamite. And that dynamite has to go from point A to point B to get to these mining operations. Now, is it probably transported in a way that is super safe? Yes. But it doesn't mean that, you may not come across a situation where you have to worry about possible dynamite explosion.
Here's a question. In about a month or so, how many vehicles will be transporting class 1 hazards?
Right. Well, fireworks are an explosive, right? Just think like that is something that could be a hazard. And how many of those do you think are being transported in a properly, secured container? No. Like, especially consumer fireworks, which get pretty big, just say.
Yes, they do.
So this is one of those instances where, like, the hot zone for, like, if you suspect that there's an explosive or fireworks available, you may need to push back that kind of cold zone much farther than you originally think you should, because the fact that something could explode is in of itself not present at the time, but you need to be extra careful of what that can do. Gunpowder falls into that category as well. Gunpowder is one of those things that gets shipped across the country, and that's an explosive item, right? So that's class 1. Class 2, gases. Now, gases can have different effects on people depending on the gas, but like there's all different types of gases that get bad. Yeah, they're all like
all bad.
Like propane. Where I live, we get propane deliveries, and that truck in and of itself is flammable. It could be explosive. I don't know if, off the top of my head, if propane has any ill effects on the human body with exposure, but I'm sure it's not good. Especially if it displaces oxygen enough. Like, that's one of those things that, like, any gas can do. If that gas displaces enough oxygen that you need to breathe, you will not be able to breathe anymore.
Yeah, propane's nasty because it's heavier than air, so it'll pull.
Right, like it'll pull.
One of the ones that'll pull in low areas.
But even oxygen itself, that thing that we always are, like the number one medication that we have at our disposal to help people perfuse better, oxygen gets transported, and oxygen is explosive, right? Like it is an explosive item, especially under pressure. So
it's dangerous.
It's dangerous. That's why we never put the oxygen bottle on its end, by the way. That's why we lay them down flat. We always lay them down on the long length so that they don't fall over and explode. And it's why people aren't allowed to smoke around oxygen bottles, even though I'm sure there's an old lady right now out there like going like, I'm watching my soaps, and she's smoking while like actually getting a nasal cannula at the same time.
Yeah.
Just
think back
flirting
to the
with death.
West of EMS in like the early 70s. And all these EMTs with their porn stashes in the back of the ambulance is smoking while they're giving care. You know what happened.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
You know what happened.
Drop us a line if you ever walked in on a patient that is smoking a cigarette with an oxygen tank or an oxygen concentrator. I want to know.
I've seen it in doing deliveries to people's homes many times.
Class 3 flammable liquids. I mean, this one's the easiest. We drive around vehicles that have containers of hazmat all the time. That gas tank is a hazardous material. It's filled with hazardous material. So gas, oil, but like things that are also flammable that we don't normally think of, like acetone. Like there's those big old like car, the big tanker trucks or rail cars. Those can have acetone in them or other flammable liquids, which are all things that can catch fire in a rather violent way if they are exposed to flames. Class 4 is flammable solids. So if we have liquids that are flammable, we got solid stuff that could catch flame. And here's what some of the more interesting ones too, like magnesium.
Yeah,
magnesium is a terrifying thing because
it's fun to play with though.
Well, it can be, but magnesium is one of those things that like creates its own oxygen basically, so it cannot be put out, and it will burn through a bunch of stuff. And if you mix it with other things, it becomes thermite, which will basically melt through anything. So magnesium is super like dangerous on the hazmat scale. Sulfur often gets shipped. Sulfur is I think it's it's like they use it a lot in industrial manufacturing. When that burns, that's an example of something that then creates a gas that is super bad. It creates sulfur dioxide gas. That's very poisonous to people. But even things like celluloid plastics, and we think of celluloid plastics probably as like ping pong balls. So, those things are incredibly flammable if you aren't aware. And like a whole truck of them getting a spark to them can easily turn into something that is very quickly out of control. So like we want to be really aware of things that are flammable and solids that are more likely to catch flame than other things. Class 5, oxidizers and organic peroxides. So these things are things that can not only make themselves, they're dangerous on their own, but like if they're that's why they don't transport like oxidizers with things that are flammable, because that then makes a really bad situation. But oxidizers are things that make flames even worse because they provide more oxygen, right? So ammonium nitrate, which I don't know if people are aware, like, basically it's a component to like bombs. It's a fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
So fertilize like that is something that obviously gets shipped around the country all the time because people need fertilizer across all the farms and stuff. So ammonium nitrate is an oxidizer, creates its own oxygen. One of the ones that I've heard about before is methyl ethyl ketone. My dad was a chemical engineer, so he taught me about like weird stuff when I was a kid in terms of like, methyl ethyl ketone and hydrogen acid. I can't think. Hydrochloric acid or hydrofluoric acid and methyl ethyl ketone. Like all these things are like industrial chemicals that get used in different situations. So like that's methyl ethyl ketone is like something used in like fiberglass production or other types of plastics and things like that. So that's something that is an organic peroxide. So it's not good. So then we start getting into class 6, toxic and infectious materials. We're talking about things that we are probably most familiar with being very bad for the human body. So like sodium cyanide. Like that is literally a thing that we think of as the poison that kills people. It's like used in euthanasia drugs for like prisons and capital punishment. But it's also used a lot in mining. Like a lot of these industrial operations may need cyanide for certain extraction of minerals from rocks and all this other stuff. Or we may run into things like medical waste or blood or things that come like, basically like biohazard stuff. All of that falls into the same category of things that are bad for the human body, and they're like toxic and infectious materials.
Right.
Then we have class 7, radioactive materials. These are things that like, it's not just they're moving like the fuel rods from 3 Mile Island to the middle of the desert. Like that's what we think of and go, there's like a big old container that has a big radioactive symbol on it. Like, well, yeah, that's one form of it, but it really happens on a much like more casual level more often than we think. Cause like, there's some radioactive materials that get used in everyday items. Like Americum-241 is the isotope or the things that get put into smoke detectors. That
it's the patriotic radioactive material.
It's America in radioactive form. Or technetium 99M. I know there's going to be a test, folks. That's used. They use that a lot in like nuclear medicine. So the things that we like when people take like barium and stuff like that, where they're finding out like where stuff is in the body by ingesting or even using nuclear or radioactive elements in scans. All of those things need to get shipped. They all need to go places. They all need to be stored places. So in higher concentrations, those things are possibly damaging to the human body in terms of radioactivity. Class 8, corrosives. This is where we start getting into the things that we're like, I know I shouldn't touch that because it just sounds bad. Sulfuric acid. Bad. Like anything with the word acid in it is probably not something we want to mess with. But like sulfuric acid is what's in batteries, like car batteries is sulfuric acid. You need that you need to be able to have access to that so that people can make things that we use in our everyday lives. Sodium hydroxide is something that is very corrosive as well, but like that's something that they use a lot in, say, industrial cleaning applications or drain cleaner. Like, sometimes you need those types of things. So, and they get shipped in large quantities because they need them in places to make the downstream, stuff from those. And then class 9 is the kind of catch-all, like miscellaneous dangerous goods. Things that they didn't really have a solid category for or solid class kind of get thrown into here. One of the ones that I thought was really interesting is dry ice. So dry ice is a hazardous material, especially if it's, I guess, in a larger quantity because, and we were talking about this before, displacement of air. So carbon dioxide is heavier than air, and it can displace the air, especially in confined spaces. So inside of a truck, if you have a lot of off-gassing, dry ice, that can easily push out all of the actual available oxygen within, say, the container itself. And all of a sudden you wouldn't be able to breathe in it. So that becomes a hazardous materials type situation. Things like lithium batteries.
Yeah, that stuff is terrifying.
That's why we can't
never seen.
Yeah.
I mean, when those things start going, one of those electric cars start burning, like it's terrifying to watch.
Yeah, they call it thermal runaway. That's what happens with these. So like lithium batteries aren't a specific chemical. They're a device, right? Of multiple chemicals working together. But those can be huge fire hazards. Why we can't fly with them anymore in checked bags. It's why we can't ship them at the post office. Like those are things that are hazardous. So we have to be careful with them.
Yep.
Thankfully, I think they've figured those out for the most part. Like it seems like we're hearing less stories nowadays about like hoverboards burning down the house on Christmas, but they still happen.
Honestly, like the main thing for me with that stuff is just roadway accidents with the electric vehicles. Like that's just, I would hate to have to be a fire department in dealing with that stuff.
Yeah. All right. So we know there's different types of stuff. We've identified it. Max helped us identify them. We know what it is. We can communicate to somebody what it is. Well, what do we do with that information, right? Like why is it important to know that this is methyl ethyl ketone? Because we can then use that information to either inform people or help ourselves make decisions based off of a super handy dandy tool.
Indeed.
Which is called the Emergency Emergency Response Guidebook.
ERG.
The ERG. Which is our tool of the trade this week, which Max will tell us about in a bit.
Yep.
But that's a super useful tool that has a bunch of information in it. And if you know what you're dealing with, that thing will tell you some directions on what to do.
Right.
So Max will bring us through that. Wrapping up what we can be doing as EMTs in this kind of process of identification and figuring out what we're dealing with. We can also, along with alerting like our local hazmat resources, like, hey, we need people to come here and start helping with this because we've identified a hazardous material. We can reach out to resources like Chemtrek, which is a 24-hour emergency chemical information resource. Definitely one of the ones they told us about. And I believe I may have even had a question on this on my NR EMT exam, if I remember correctly. It was specifically mentioned. It's basically like the poison control hotline, but for hazardous materials stuff. So you can call them. You can get chemical information, protective recommendations. Like they have direct connection and contact with shippers and manufacturers. They're basically like the resource for hazmat stuff. So it's super useful and it's always there available for us on the emergency services side. So when we need expert guidance on that, it's kind of like, when a parent needs poison control to help them figure out like what they need for their kids. Like we can call that to be like, hey, how do I deal with a chlorine gas spill? What do I got to do? And that's what they're there to help us with is like, okay, now back everybody out to the next county and evacuate all the houses, and you can't live there for the next 40 years. Or I might be confusing chlorine gas with like a nuclear explosion. Either way, like they're going to tell us what the thing that we need to do is. Okay, now last little thing I'll throw in here is we have what we're looking for. We've identified it. Now we need to start setting up what we're doing. Now we're going to talk about what we can do for people and patients that may be directly affected by the contaminant. That's going to be in the decontamination stuff. We'll talk about that in a second, but we also need to consider the fact that we're working within this ICS system, the incident command system, and there's going to be a bunch of people coming there to do certain jobs and roles. And most likely there's going to be first responders coming there, like those guys in the technician or the is it operations?
So your general fire department is probably going to have operations and then folks.
Technicians.
And then they may even have a specialized hazmat team that has technicians on it.
But these people are going to be coming there and doing the hard work. They're going to be going into the scene. They're going to be going into the hot zone. And then while we're on the outside in the cold zone waiting for, whoever's affected by the contaminant, what we also are going to be doing is setting up the rehabilitation area. And I actually got a little bit of practice in this because I did a standby at my local fire training center. And we have one at our local agency or at our local firehouse. And when they do training scenarios, we send an ambulance there to do rehab operations because those guys are going into hot environments. It's very likely and this is what happens at any fire, right? Like if there's firemen going in and they're coming out, they need to be monitored, and they're likely going to suffer from some sort of heat emergency because they're exerting themselves in a super hot environment, and they need backup to make sure that they're staying safe and that they have people on hand to be able to help them. So we're doing the same thing at a hazmat type situation because those guys are going to be coming in. They're wearing like super heavy gear. They're going to be sealed in basically hermetic containers, and they're going to be going into these situations where it's probably hot, and they're going to be doing the same types of things that would be happening at a fire, or they're going to need the same type of monitoring when they come out so that they can rehab and recharge and stay safe, right? Like, so we'll be monitoring vitals. We'll be providing probably some water, things to help them kind of, stave off those heat emergencies. Let me just get back to my notes real quick. And yeah, so we're definitely going to be, dealing with setting up that rehab facility. It'll be in the cold zone. It will be protected from the weather, accessible to us on the EMS side, and then with plenty of monitoring and hydration available.
Yep.
And the things that we look for, every local system is going to have some sort of protocols for how to set up a rehab, because in Pennsylvania, we actually have protocols of this is the normal heart rate. This is when we need to be monitoring. This is how long they have to do, and what their vitals have to show before they can be released to go back into a fire. So heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, hydration status, those are the things that we're monitoring, making sure that people are staying healthy, right?
Yep.
But basically, the job is we've identified the hazmat. Those guys are going in to deal with it, and we are there to help prevent those responders from becoming patients. So we're doing everything we can to help with them. But those guys are going to go in, and what if, when those guys go in, they're going to become contaminated. They're going into the hot zone, right? Yep. They may find a patient that is contaminated that was in the hot zone. So I guess this is probably a good point to talk about, what do we do if somebody is contaminated or something is contaminated? Like, we're going to have to deal with that at some point, right?
So one of the things that the hazmat operations trained individual is going to be doing is they're going to be doing something called decontamination, or you may hear it called in the shorthand decon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the process of reducing or preventing the spread of contamination from people or equipment. Right. So they're covered in whatever substance. They don't want to take that out of the hot zone or out of the warm zone into the cold zone, which is all the rest of the world that's not being affected by the incident. So they have to be cleaned off before they can, either that person can go outside of the warm zone, or that a piece of equipment can go outside of the warm zone. So this is the whole process to make sure that doesn't happen by cleaning and decontaminating the equipment. Ultimately, it's going to protect your patients. It's going to protect your responders. It's going to keep the integrity and the cleanliness of your ambulance, your hospitals, and just the general kind of public environment safe from whatever hazardous material is out there during this incident that we don't want to expose the rest of the world to. And here's kind of a big thing, right? So those hazmat operations trained folks, they're in the warm zone. They're going to do a very, and Max is going to get into this in a minute, they're going to do a very, very quick decontamination, right? And so they may be decontaminated, but that doesn't mean that they're completely clean from everything. That just means most of the substances off of them. There's still that possibility of residual contaminants on them. So we still need to be aware, still need to wear our PPE as appropriate. As a general thing, as EMS providers, we're going to stay in that cold zone. And we're going to keep our ambulances in that cold zone. And it's really, really important that we do that decon process, because we don't want to take a contaminated patient, like I said, and put them in our clean ambulance and then take them to the hospital and contaminate the hospital. That causes all sorts of problems. And oftentimes hospitals might even have additional decontamination rooms with showers and things like that before you take somebody into the emergency department proper. So, when the hazmat operations folks bring somebody out of that warm zone, they should have decontaminated them. And as the EMS provider that might be transporting or treating this person, that person should mostly be decontaminated. This is the time where we're going to implement our medical treatments for them. This is the time after we do that, we're going to transport them, and then we're going to start our assessments. But that only occurs after decontamination. And so you got 4 types of folks that you might encounter in this environment. So you've got somebody that is not injured and they are uncontaminated. And so I wouldn't even personally classify these folks as patients. They're bystanders, right? So they don't have any they don't have any issues going on, but they just need to more or less be gotten out of the area and kept away from the hazmat incident going on. Then you might have somebody that's injured, but they're not contaminated. At this point, they're going to just get our typical EMS care that they would normally get.
Right.
And then now here's where we start getting into the mix of things. You may have somebody that is uninjured, but they're contaminated. And so that could mean that, yes, they have whatever the substance is on them, and they're maybe not affected by it at this current moment. Maybe the substance takes a while to start to affect them, or maybe it's not something that necessarily harms people in the doses that they're getting it in, or maybe it's a time of exposure kind of thing. But otherwise, they're uninjured. They're just contaminated. So we have to decontaminate them before we can provide any sort of care to them. And then this is going to be this next category of person is going to be the person that's going to be the most complex to deal with. We've got somebody that's injured, and that could be in varying degrees, and they are also contaminated. So we've got to make sure that, and the thing about hazmat incidents, typically they're not very quick to you're not very quick to go through all these processes because it takes some resources to get a hot zone, a warm zone, and a cold zone established, and then to get all the equipment necessary to conduct decontamination. It's going to take a minute. So these people may have to hold off. So if you've got somebody that's severely injured or even mildly injured, they may have to wait, and then that entire time they're being exposed to the chemical or the hazardous material.
I can only imagine how rough that is to be in that spot where there is somebody that you can help, but you can't because, I mean, and could help is a loose term because are you really helping them if you're trying to treat them without them being decontaminated from the thing that is a danger to them in the first place, and then the downstream effects of bringing that the contaminant to all these other people and places just because we're not going to wait so that this person goes through decontamination. It's like that's a shitty spot to be in. I get it.
Yes, it is.
But I think that's part of what we've learned in this whole thing of becoming part of EMS is like sometimes while it seems dispassionate to have to take that approach to things, it's the only way.
Yeah.
These are the things that end up keeping us safe, right? These things that,
and the rest of the public.
And it's very different. Yeah, and exactly the rest of the the general public safe as well. It's probably one of the things that was the biggest mindset adjustment for me coming into public safety was, oh man, I got to protect myself, and then sometimes I have to consider that I can't help the patient because if I go try and help the patient, it exposes me and the rest of the public to risk. And so we have to put things in place before we can actually go help this person. So the first step in this.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the first step in dealing with this injured and contaminated person is they've got to be decontaminated. And it might take a minute to set that up, but they have to be decontaminated. And then once they're out of that warm zone and in the cold zone, that's when we're going to start our medical treatments, and we're going to do the best we can for them. And then we may even have to make special considerations related to where we choose to transport them, depending on what the substance is, right? That it might be appropriate to take them to our level 1 trauma center. We may want to take them to a burn center, right? It's going to depend on what that substance is. And, we just kind of have to go from there. Yeah. Max, why don't you explain the difference between gross decontamination and secondary decontamination to us?
So gross decontamination is that immediate, rapid, early decontamination. You're removing the majority of the contamination, and it's performed on scene as fast as possible. Secondary decontamination is more thorough. This is where clothing will be removed. You're removing any residual contamination that's there, and you're performing this after that initial hit. There's a bunch of different methods of decontamination as well. There's something called emulsification, which is the use of soap or detergent, and all this is going to be dependent on what the material is. You have chemical reaction, neutralization of the contaminants. So if you have an acid, using a base to neutralize the acid.
Right, but in specific determined amounts, because we can't just be that's a base, let's throw that on there.
Let's throw this on there, yeah. And again, this is all going to be determined by first identifying what the substance is, how much they were exposed to. You also have disinfection for elimination of biological contaminants. Dilution, just using water to reduce the amount that's there.
And that, by the way, I think this is one of those NREMT kind of tidbits.
Yes.
I believe I at least saw it maybe twice, or at least once within my NREMT exam, the answer for immediate decontamination steps for somebody, brushing off stuff and then using copious amounts of water to dilute things. So remember those phrases. Brushing stuff off first, and then copious amounts of water is the first two steps.
Because if you don't brush that powder or that substance off first, you could be turning that into a worse situation by adding the water to it. So getting
Max,
good.
If I can jump in here, when we're talking about using copious amounts of water and dilution, one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is all that runoff has to be caught from us trying to decontaminate people, right? We can't just let that free flow into the streets. Now, sometimes that might be the case depending on what our emergency response guide says and what somebody like Chemcheck might say to us about that substance. But in general, we want to catch all that runoff before
and prevent it from making anything else worse.
And a lot of times, if I've seen pictures of where it basically looks like a baby pool they're stepping into.
Yep.
And that's what's basically catching all that residual that's coming off of them. You also have absorption and adsorption, binding contaminants to other substances. Like if you have something that, my mind's escaping me, like charcoal. Like when you use that for a poison, what it's doing is it's binding that poison to the charcoal material. Yeah. And same idea, but you're on the external part of the body. Removal, physically removing by brushing, rinsing, or vacuuming, which is what we just talked about. If you have some kind of a powder or some kind of a substrate that's on them. And then disposal, which is removing contaminated objects from the surface. So if you have stuff that's, I don't know what that would be inferring to. Like if you had clothing, I would assume would be disposal, removing contaminated objects.
Right. So there's removing it from the patient itself, and then removing once because all the stuff Jonathan was talking about is contaminated, like the things that you have removed from them, the liquid, the water, the clothes, all that stuff. You then have to dispose of those contained hazmat items, right? So that's a whole nother form of disposing of stuff is hey, we need to put that in the proper place.
Right.
And there's generally a special process for all of that, depending on what the material is that's people have been exposed to. And you may even have to call in a third party vendor to come handle that disposal process.
Gotcha. And then patient decontamination principles. This is for mainly ambulatory patients. First step is remove the clothing. Like with trauma naked, get it off of them so that hopefully most of the contaminants go with the clothing. Remove jewelry and personal items. I would assume you would bag those for them. But if they're contaminated, I don't know what the process would be.
They may go into some sort of controlled, contaminant area. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Flush with water. Like we talked about, copious amounts of water. Wash with the contamination solution, so whatever is appropriate for whatever the
body.
Yeah.
Whatever
the thing is that's contaminated then.
Right. And what we're talking about here is not just if their hand is contaminated, patients are getting full on hey, we're washing everything down, right? When we're removing the clothing, we're removing all of it. We're washing the whole body down. We have to use things if we're using a decontamination solution, that solution needs to be appropriate for use on the human body, right? So we're not talking about hey, we're gonna scrub them with lye,
that would be a bad thing.
That would be bad. It's probably soap or some sort of special decontamination type solution.
Making sure to irrigate the eyes if it's necessary or appropriate. And also you have a patient who now has been doused with potentially copious amounts of water, which isn't going to be body temperature. Make sure that you don't get the patient into hypothermia as a result.
Yeah. It seems like probably one that they've learned the hard way. They're we got to decontaminate all these people.
We saved them.
They don't like it when you have to spray them off in November.
Yeah.
It's cold out. They don't like it. I promise you.
Yeah. That sounds like a terrible time.
Yeah. But a quick note, removing the clothing alone can eliminate a lot of the contamination. Yeah. So getting that clothing off of them is going to get rid of a lot of those things that can be hurting them.
Yeah. So I think we've heard the story of understanding what hazmat is, how it gets organized, how we approach it, what we need to do, how we find out what those hazmat materials are, and then ultimately how are we helping patients that could be in that hazmat area? And then after that, after the decontamination, we're on to everything that we've been doing so far, right?
Yeah. All the basics that we
patient
do
care
on a daily basis.
So while it is super like out of the norm, and I'll admit, like when we were approaching this section, I'm like, ooh, hazmat. I got to read up on this because we never do it. Like so seldomly are we dealing with contaminated patients, at least in my area. I'm sure like the longer we do this, we'll have some sort of experiences to draw from. But it is probably not on the daily, right? Like it is not part of what we usually deal with. It's like deliveries for babies. Like it's we need to do it right when it happens, but it happens so seldomly that it's one of those things that it's very easy for us to get unfamiliar with it, right?
Yeah.
And to kind of forget things. So this was a good refresher for us who we just learned about it it probably would have been in December. We're in June now. So like even 6 months ago, we went into some pretty deep discussions on hazmat. And then we did the hazmat courses earlier in our semester, probably September or October. We did our hazmat classes. So while we've done those, it's still not something that's like usually talked about on the daily, right? So we need to be thinking about those things, especially being familiar with how the organization runs and like being familiar with ICS systems, which is also a really good kind of segue into what we'll be talking about next week in terms of ICS and the incident command system and mass casualty incidences, because they all kind of fit into similar categories.
I'm assuming we're going to have way more acronyms in that chapter.
Oh yeah.
I have no doubt.
I'm sure.
The train of acronyms will be increasing.
Maybe I'll do a deep dive into like all the acronyms that exist within just the triage.
Oh my God.
Category. But okay, so I think we've got a good handle on hazmat itself, but we've been teasing it. We've been telling them about it. Max, will you deliver? Will you give them what they've been waiting for since we first mentioned the ERG? What is our tool of the trade this week?
It is the ERG, the ERG, or the Emergency Book. It's an operational manual for first responders, and it was first published by the U.S. Department of Transportation. It provides immediate step-by-step instructions on how to identify hazardous materials, protect the public, and manage the scene during a critical first minutes of a transportation emergency.
That's it?
That's it.
It's
a book.
Yeah.
It's got colors in it. Fancy colors.
Oh.
Hey, colors, pages, pictures, it's perfect for us.
Colors are important to some people.
Well, yeah. For you, the ERG would be like, I don't understand.
I can't tell the which page is fuchsia and which page is pink.
Damn it.
Yeah. Which one's green?
It primarily focuses on incidents involving dangerous goods on highways, railways, and pipelines. A really interesting point about it, though, is it really just focuses on the initial phase. It is designed to guide responders to the first 15 to 30 minutes of an incident. That's it. It's allowing them to. So it's just that initial contact with the incident, which I thought was kind of interesting. How do you use it? Well, the ER find information by referencing the chemical's 4-digit U. And this is across the board. This is national, and actually it's international in some cases. It's standardized, I think, in all of North America. So it's something that's used not just used in the States, but also outside of the States. The first section are called the white pages, and these have safety precautions, instructions, and hazard classification explanation. So basically telling you what that thing might be.
You mean it's not the section where we can look up everybody's phone number that lives in our area?
God, that just dated you.
I
You know what
remember
the-
getting phone books.
I don't know. Do you know what the blue pages were?
Oh, wasn't that like ads?
No, blue pages were like all the emergency contact stuff.
Oh, right. And then the yellow pages were the ads, right? Like
Yes.
I'm going to
Yes.
buy an ad in the yellow pages under plumber.
Yes,
And that's
because
why all the plumbers had the name like AAA plumbing, because
Exactly.
they would wind up being higher in the list than all the other plumbers.
exactly. Then you have the yellow pages. You know, not those yellow pages, these yellow pages. And these are indexed by number. This is a list of hazardous materials sorted by the 4-digit ID number, guiding users to the corresponding guide page. So if all you have is that 4-digit number, that allows you to find what that thing is. The blue pages are indexed by its name. Same idea. If you don't have the number to go off of, all you have manifest, then this is going to be able to direct you to what you have to do. So it's the same thing as the yellow pages. It's just organized in a different way. The orange pages are the core of the book. Each 2-page guide provides specific hazards, public safety distances, evacuation or isolation, and immediate emergency actions, whether it's a fire, a spill, or for first aid. So these are going to tell you what you need to do once you've figured out what it is that's spilled. That's the whole idea of this book, is to give you the ability to set up that immediate incident command and know what you can do, what you should do, and what resources do you need. And then at the last, you have the green pages. This section covers initial isolation and provides specific distances for safety, separating the public from spills and the materials. So these green pages are just going to give you an idea of what to do. You've identified it. You know what it is. The orange pages are now going to tell you what to do, what the dangers are of that material. And the green pages are going to tell you now how to space things out from your hot, your cold, and your warm zone. So it is a step-by-step process of telling you what to do when you come on scene of a hazmat situation.
Nice. Sounds like a pretty important thing that we should know where it is.
I'm just saying, like, there's certain things that have been crazy that have been just completely overlooked in my breakdown of the ambulance and where things are. And this is going to be fixed as soon as I get on my next shift.
Yeah. Well,
because it would be good to know where this is.
Yes. I think it's important for all of us to know where these are for certain. However, I will say, and I think throwing this in there, like, all of these things exist, or at least in what I've seen, like these big white binders. The white binder winds up being in the cab of the truck, and it's like either in the console area behind the console, or more likely thrown behind the seat and under the seat in some way, shape, or form. Like, it is not easily accessible. I'm sure somebody can dig it out if needed. And it's usually this big giant book that has a bunch of stuff in it. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to kind of like flip through casually.
Right.
So I would definitely recommend, and what's helped me, and I need to do it way more, is like going through it and being familiar with the different parts of it. However, I will say, and something we can mention here, is that there are possibly situations or services out there that are using electronic ERGs.
I have no doubt.
Which seems like it would be a way easier way to deal with that. Like, just like there's electronic protocols out there, I'm sure there's electronic ERGs, which will help people get to the information they need quicker and be able to
100%.
easily search for like hydrochloric acid. Okay, that's what I need, and and it'll give you all the information on that. So I think that's an important thing for us to kind of like, I think would be really good. And probably the wave of the future. Like, I think a lot of stuff in EMS still relies on a lot of paper. Like, like we have printed protocols in our ambulance, which of course you should have. But I think the wave of the future is really kind of relying on easily searchable and navigable protocols and
without a doubt.
And like ERGs and all that type of stuff. Even patient records are all starting to go digital, at least hopefully.
And like I said a minute ago, like one of the it's a good thing, but it's also a limitation of the ERG. It's really for initial assessment, for in-depth safety, exposure limits, and all that stuff. That's where you would reference the safety data sheet. which we had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Another note about the ERG is that it is updated every 4 years. The latest edition is the 2024 edition, so it'll be updated again in 2028. I'm sure they'll add all sorts of lovely things that are being transported across the country in highways driven by guys that are, been up 24 hours. I'm sure it's great. A little history on the ERG. It was originated in 1973 when the U.S. Department of Transportation published a 63-page booklet called The Emergency Services Guide for Selected Hazardous Materials.
Ooh, sounds like a real page turner.
I'm telling you. Yeah, I want to read it right now.
Like, I'm sure it was on the top of, it would have been the Amazon book list of its 100%.
Day. And I'd like you to see if you can guess how many chemicals were in that original.
In the original one?
In the original one.
250?
Nope. 29.
29
chemicals, focusing primarily on common flammable substances, corrosives, and toxic gases.
Wow. Okay.
I'm pretty sure we mentioned more than that just in the breakdown of this episode.
Maybe. I mean, that's part of the whole game that we're a part of, right? Like the collective knowledge of EMS and emergency services just keeps growing year by year. Like things that we can do, medical knowledge, like procedures. It grows, man.
Yeah. And some other notable dates: in 1977, the U.S. Department of Transportation added illustrations of newly adopted hazardous material placards to help responders visually identify threats. And that's where I like pictures. The skull and crossbones, or the hand that's being melted away by whatever liquid is in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
In 1980, it took on its modern organized layout, and it started that famous color coding system and expanded past 140 pages.
Wow.
In 1982, after a hazardous material train derailment investigation in Delaware, the National Transportation Safety Board and the Research and Special Programs Administration instituted a federal rule. This required shipping papers to append explicit emergency response information cementing the ERG's role on the road. So that basically means that those safety data sheets had to be on board with the manifests.
Nice.
And in 1996, the publication underwent a massive shift to harmonize emergency response across North American borders. And again, from 2000 to present, every 4 years, it gets a revision.
Cool.
So that is the ERG.
ERG.
Also can be used to subdue a patient if that's what you're into.
We're not going
Don't
to
do that.
Yeah. That's what oxygen
Don't
bottles are
Don't
for.
listen to Max.
Yeah.
Don't listen to Mike.
we're deep into the episode. I'm sure no one's listening at this point. No, but like it is a hefty book. Like it's like, War and Peace, like how heavy that thing is. But yeah, they always find a spot for it. Probably somewhere in the cab.
Hopefully not holding up the table in the lunchroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That leg's too short. Put that book under there.
That'd be a really short leg. Like not even, like very noticeably shorter than the rest of the legs. Cool, man.
Wheelchair for the ambulance.
So I think that's a really good tool of the trade. It's going to be on every ambulance. It's something that we should all be very familiar with. And super related specifically to hazmat and something that we should really all be thinking about more often, I think. Because it's important. We have to know how this stuff goes. And, can I just say, and while I love to, playfully rib at the fire guys out there, thank God there's people out there that do that job specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, you know what? Like dudes that dedicate their professional life to going into situations with like chemicals and hazardous materials. Come on. Like we like to play around and joke that like everybody in public service is heroes, but like there's heroes from heroes, right? You know what I mean?
Hey.
Like those guys, who else too? People like the dudes who do like confined space rescue.
No,
forget that. Like
no.
Those guys are heroes, like going into small wells and like, crawl spaces to pull out people. No. Yeah. Those are the heroes.
I'll tell you, the next time I'm on shift and I'm wearing shorts because they're approved now, and I'm wearing shorts, and I see a fire guy, and I say, "Man, it's hot." And when he's in his turnout gear, it's a little hot today, isn't it? It's stifling as I'm standing there in my shorts, and then he's standing there in his turnout gear. I'm looking forward to that.
We have the opposite at my hometown service. The firemen are allowed to wear shorts, and we are not. Mainly because when they leave, they don't wear shorts. They put on turnout gear. So
yeah, which is I don't even want to think how hot that is.
And I like the idea of shorts, but man, I don't know if I would wear shorts in EMS.
I'm giving it a try. I'm giving it a try.
When you kneel down in something that is gross, let us know.
Yeah.
I have a solution for that, sir.
And
slip-on knee pads. I use them at work every day.
They're
magnificent.
I wear those same knee pads under my pants. But sometimes stuff soaks through.
I'm just saying.
Think of it this way: then it's saturated into the knee pad. But all right, so thank you, Max, for bringing us through the tool of the trade this week of the ERG, which brings us to our final segment of our episode, where we end every episode with a little bit of test prep.
By getting all the questions right.
Well, Max gets them all right, and sometimes I overthink things. So he's got a much better track record than I do, probably because he did a lot of practicing on the EMR curriculum instead of the EMT curriculum.
Yes.
But Jonathan, why don't you take us through some student test prep?
So I've got some different kinds of questions for you guys tonight. Since this is a specific episode on hazardous material training and awareness and everything, I pulled questions directly from test prep related to the hazmat awareness training.
Wow. Okay.
Interesting. 0 for 3 this week. 0 for 3 this week, but we'll come back next week.
Hey, you know, we need some new challenges every now and then.
We do.
So the first question is, what does the ERG provide to hazardous material responders? The first answer is going to be advanced medical treatment protocols. Second answer is detailed analysis of chemical properties. The third answer is initial actions to take at a hazardous material incident. And then the fourth answer is long-term environmental monitoring plans.
I'm locked in.
I'm locked in too. Which is hilarious because Max literally just taught us about this. And
yes,
I think I'm actually kind of happy about this because it means that, like, hey, we covered stuff that's in test prep in our episode. So I think this is 100% without a doubt advanced medical prep. No, I'm joking. It is initial actions to take at hazardous material incidences.
Yes.
Max, do you agree?
I agree. I concur.
You guys are correct.
Nice.
That is the correct answer. So initial actions to take at a hazardous materials incident. Exactly what you said earlier, Max.
Too easy.
And I didn't plan that.
Yeah.
I didn't plan that. I just picked some questions that I thought were good ones. All right. So here's the next question. Which action is within the awareness level of responsibility? Answer 1. Determine the appropriate action based on the ERG. Answer 2. Implement containment procedures. Answer 3. Initiate evacuation protocols. Or answer 4. Conduct advanced risk assessment.
By the way, this is one of these questions that was 100% on my test. These vague things of what is the best action within the awareness scope. These are on that damn test.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Max?
Well, so I think there's 2 that jump out to me. I would eliminate implement containment procedures, although maybe not. No, I'm gonna eliminate implement containment procedures because that's not an initial step, and that's more defensive. Which would be the next level. And I would also eliminate conduct advanced risk assessment,
Yeah.
which leaves us with either initiate evacuation or determine appropriate action based on the ERG.
I would say, just to throw out there too, I would say evacuation protocols shouldn't be in that either, because evacuation protocols, I would assume, fall into the like, hey, we need to pull people out of this containment area, right?
Right, which would be kind of the same thing defensive, I guess.
I'm not 100% on that, but I think that's, to me, that it would fall into like something that's not in the scope of like awareness. It's more in the like operations or technician.
I'm falling on determine the appropriate action based on the ERG.
Yeah, to me, that was like, it mentions the ERG. It is a very reasonable assumption that's like, hey, it's going to tell you the action to do. Like, that's the action we should, that seems like the easy answer.
I need to find a way that when you pull the ERG out, like one of those sounds goes off in the ambulance.
With like a bright light behind it.
Light. Yeah. So I'm going to go with answer 1, sir.
Okay, so determine the appropriate action based on the ERG. That is the correct answer. So, interesting thing about taking a hazmat test and maybe some of these questions showing up on your National Register EMT test, anything that usually, you still have to read the question, but usually if it involves the Emergency Response Guidebook, and it says to do something related to that, that's probably going to be your best bet as far as an answer is concerned.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. These are very, very common sense kind of things. All right. So, final question for the night.
Yes.
What is the most common method for transporting hazardous materials?
I'm locked in. I'm locked in immediately.
Answer 1.
Go ahead.
Railway.
No, it can't be that. It can't be that.
Answer 2. Road.
No, can't be that.
Answer 3. Road, but it's spelled RODE.
That's the one right there.
Answer 4. Marine.
Like on water or like on the back of a United States Marine? Because
I you know what, we'll let it be the dealer's choice.
Because I would think it's hilarious if like that's the way the most hazmats transported in the United States is like on the back of a jarhead that is dragging it behind them.
we do have some friends that are retired Marines, and maybe we could ask them.
Yeah.
I have a future son-in-law that's a retired Marine. I can ask him.
Is it retired Marine or former Marine?
I don't know.
We'll have to
you're
ask
never
him.
a former Marine.
He used to do
You're
Marine
always
things.
a Marine.
Right.
He used to do Marine things.
Yeah. No, I thought that was the proper term is former. Yeah, you wouldn't be a former Marine, but anyway.
No, you're always a Marine.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
about
they're easily the most badass of the armed services, like without a doubt.
By far.
Oh, side note. Oh, okay. Let's finish this first, and then I'll give you my side note. My answer is the improperly spelled word for road was weird. I think.
Well, you know, sometimes you may see that type of thing on a question. Again, now this came from the hazmat awareness curriculum.
Yes.
That you have to take as an EMT and some testing that you may do during that.
And this is probably these questions may have been made by a person out there making flashcards for themselves.
Right.
So
or this was the very first one they made, and if you pick that, they just immediately think, okay, you need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, but I would say that to me, honestly, I'm not 100% sure on it, even though we may have even mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like whether or not it's more for rail versus road. I think there's probably more incidences on the road, but I would think that the volume of material is higher on rail. Like that's what I feel. But that's a toss up, honestly.
It is.
Are you guys locked in on that?
The most common method for transporting hazardous materials is rail. That's what I'm going to go with.
That's what I'm locked into.
Guys, I'm sorry. You've broken your streak. You've broken your streak. That is incorrect. So,
all right. Well, that's fair. I mean, that's a hard one.
Yeah, and really, it's just if you think about it, rail cars can go a whole lot of places, but the roadways are going to
No,
take
of
things.
course. Like
It could have been either one.
Yeah,
but I had the
it's-
same thought in my head. The volume you could move by rail would be way higher just because of the nature of it. So that's kind of my head went the same place, but it could have been either one of those.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I mean, this.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you got to make a guess. Like you do, like without statistics that we're studying too, you'll never know. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So the side note I had about United States Marines, I was riding with a paramedic the other day who was a third on our truck, and turns out he's also an ER physician. He still rides as a paramedic to keep his cert active. Awesome guy. We wound up talking a bunch that evening, and so he's just finished his first year of residency, and so I asked him, like, and he's older. He's like in his late 30s, and I was like, "So you went to medical school in your 30s?" He's like, "Yep. I was a paramedic first. I really wanted to keep pushing things." I'm like, "That's awesome. Where'd you go to medical school?" And he goes, "I went to medical school in Grenada." And I'm like, "That's interesting. Like, how many medical schools are there in Grenada?" Because I remember watching this movie when I was a young boy about Marines going to save
Ridge.
a bunch of medical students in Grenada. He goes, "Yep, that's the one. There's only that one." So he went to the medical school in Heartbreak Ridge, where Gunny Highway, played by Clint Eastwood, goes and saves a bunch of medical students. So that movie is one of the ones that made me a fan of the United States Marine Corps. Like those guys are the best. So hoorah. If you're a former or what is the proper term? You tell us.
Send
And
your hate mail.
If you're a Marine and you're an EMT, send us an email, and we thank you because you guys are awesome.
Indeed.
All right, so that brings us to the end. The end of HazMat. We'll be doing more kind of related stuff over the next week or so, where we're talking about some ICS and MCI stuff. Still in this kind of operations related categories, but not the daily operations, the things that kind of come around, seldomly, but we still need to know them, right? Because those situations may arise, larger situations, things that are a bit more complicated that need organization. So HazMat's definitely one of them. Mass casualty incidents are definitely one of them. So stay tuned. We've got more coming, and then we'll get into more stuff, including some test prep, some specific test prep type stuff, and that's what we'll be doing over the next few weeks. Is really kind of helping get everybody, feeling good about getting their exams done, because we're right at the end. We're almost there for the curriculum of EMT school. So what we do after that, I have no idea, but we've got things in the works. So. But yeah, so that's what we got going on. And shoot us a line if you guys are having a good time, if you are enjoying this, and just how you're doing from within EMT school or in your jobs. I cannot tell you how awesome it is when we get an email from somebody saying, "Hey, I've been listening to the podcast, and thank you guys for kind of, doing what you do and kind of laying this out. They use it as a study guide. It helps them understand things. It's another way to kind of learn this stuff." Man, that has made this whole thing worth it. Like
100%.
Hearing from you guys out there, utilizing this and finding it useful is, for those that have sent us a note, thank you, because that really means a lot to us. So
100%.
All right. So, thanks for taking the journey with us, and we'll see you next time on the Ride Along. This podcast is for educational and storytelling purposes only. It is not medical advice or official EMT training. Always follow your accredited instructors and local protocols.
Heartbeats racing in